Hi. We've been getting a lot of questions lately from LLC owners asking, do I absolutely need an operating agreement? I'm going to tell you from a business attorney's perspective, the answer is yes. Now, legally, you don't have to have one in order for your LLC to be legally valid. However, it is a tool in your toolbox to help substantiate and legitimize your company. But that's not the only reason why a business attorney is going to tell you that you do need an operating agreement for your LLC. I've seen firsthand the problems that can arise when businesses don't have an operating agreement. And essentially, it can be a complete nightmare if you don't and end up costing you hundreds of thousands of dollars in the long run. So, first, let's talk about what exactly is an operating agreement. It's basically a legal document that lays out who owns what and how your LLC is going to run. Think of it like a roadmap for your business, and it's very important to have one in place so you know where your business is going. You might think, well, why do I need that? Don't I just have a business plan? No, a business plan is completely separate. For starters, an LLC operating agreement can help prevent fights and disagreements between you and your business partners. Without an operating agreement, you might not agree on certain things like how to split your profits, who gets paid what, how much money is going to be reinvested into the business. What happens if somebody no longer wants to be a part of the business? How do you essentially buy out that partner? Or can that partner just sell their interest to anyone that they want? What happens if one of the business partners isn't carrying their weight or they're doing something illegal? How do you get them out of the business? This is everything that your LLC operating agreement should be explaining. Now, without an operating agreement, all of this is kind of left up into the air. So when there's no clear plan in place, things get very messy very fast. And that's not the worst part. So, as I mentioned, without an operating agreement, it's kind of up in the air in the sense that Florida law now governs what happens to your business. So, your business could be subject to a handful of different laws that you might not even know exist. And these laws probably are not what you want for your business because they're supposed to be just a generic rule across the board. And businesses are not generic, they're not one size fits all. You need something specific for your company and your needs and vision for it as well. For example, the state might require that you all have equal voting rights, even if one person's invested more than another. That can lead to all sorts of problems, right? Not having an operating agreement can also put your personal assets at risk. Now, this is particularly important because, as I just mentioned about the disputes and how to resolve it, you might be thinking, well, I'm the only owner of my business, so I don't really care what happens with disputes because there aren't going to be any. I'm not going to disagree with myself, right? Well, there are still very important and potentially costly consequences to not having an operating agreement. So there's very important reason to also have one, even if you're considered a single member LLC. So if your business runs into financial trouble and doesn't have an operating agreement, creditors might be able to still come after your personal assets to pay off any debts. Let me tell you, this is not a situation that you want to find yourself in. And unfortunately, I've had to help few people get themselves out of this situation. Some people think, listen, I've registered my LLC, it's on Sunbiz, I've done what I need to do, and by definition, it's a limited liability company. Therefore, my liability is limited. That's not exactly true. There are always exceptions to the rule. That's the first thing we learn in law school. There's a million exceptions to every rule, and then there's even exceptions to the exceptions. But to get back on track, there are exceptions to the liability protection that you think the LLC is giving you. Remember at the very beginning of this video, I mentioned it's just one of the tools that helps legitimize your business. If you have no tools legitimizing your business and all you have is one single LLC registration with Sunbiz, that's probably going to be a very weak argument to tell a judge, please don't come after my personal assets, go after the business. That's what's called piercing the corporate veil. Okay, they can get through to your personal assets and disregard the LLC's entity. On the other hand, if you have an operating agreement that says, listen, I took my business very seriously. I knew what I was doing, and I made sure that I hired a good attorney to get all of my provisions in place and help me set up this company so that all of my tools legitimize my business and show that in case a creditor ever wants to come after me, or if I ever get sued, even if it's a customer suing me, and my company only has, let's say you only have a $100,000 insurance, commercial insurance liability policy, but you have $500,000, a million plus in assets. And now that customer, or rather the customer's lawyer, wants to get to your personal assets because you have way more than your company's assets. They can use different tactics to try to get to them. But the more tools you have in your belt, including the operating agreement, which is the most important, the harder and more impossible it becomes for someone to get through to your personal assets. Now, the other reason why operating agreements are so important is because if you don't have an operating agreement and something goes wrong, you could end up in a legal battle with your business partners. And that can be a huge headache, not to mention incredibly expensive. I can't tell you how many cases I've litigated where business partners who started off the best of friends, maybe even family members, or just complete strangers who invested together in a business, everything starts off perfectly great. I tell everybody all the time, being in business with somebody else is like being married to them. And most of the time, you spend more time with your business partner than you do your actual spouse. And just like with your actual spouse, you're going to have disputes with your business partner. Nobody goes through life with zero arguments or zero disagreements. There's no identical twin of you walking around making the exact same decisions that you would make in every situation. That's just not reality. The reality is that at some point in time, you and your partner are going to have a disagreement. And if you don't have an operating agreement that says, how do we resolve these? Or what do we do if one of us starts acting shady, starts taking money out of the account that we didn't agree on, starts using the account for their personal expenses, or just starts operating the business completely contrary to how you envisioned it and how is in your governing documents? What are you going to do? If you don't have a provision in there that says, these are the steps I can take to buy you out or expel you from the company, you have to go to court. And the average civil litigation case is 18 to 24 months. And that's actually before COVID, so it's probably a lot longer right now. Not to mention the hundreds of thousands you're going to spend in litigation. Because when a business is involved, assuming that it's it's not county court or small claims, you have to have a business attorney. Businesses cannot represent themselves pro se, just like an individual actually could. If I wanted to sue my neighbor individually, I could do that as a pro se individual. But if my business wanted to sue someone or was getting sued, I'd have to have an attorney if it's in the higher level circuit court. And most business disputes are. So your operating agreement is going to help you resolve those. Because unfortunately, without something in place, you have to go to court and let the courts decide. So those are the three main reasons why you're going to want to have an operating agreement. It is absolutely essential for your LLC. Not only does it help you prevent fights, it helps you protect your personal assets, and it keeps your business running smoothly according to plan. Now, as a business attorney, I highly recommend that you do talk to an experienced attorney about drafting an operating agreement that works for you. Another thing that unfortunately I see too often is clients will come to me saying, oh no, I have an operating agreement. Got it offline. Well, that's great, but it doesn't help you because more likely than not, it's about 5, maybe 6 pages long and is missing a ton of key components, a ton of very vital provisions, and it's not drafted to your company. It's a template operating agreement that has nothing to do with your business except they slapped your company name on it. So trust me, it is an investment in your business. It is an investment in your future. If you aren't serious, and I tell clients this when they come to me and they say, oh, I want an operating agreement, but I want it done cheap. Well, if this is a hobby for you, if this is a side hustle, it's nothing that you're doing that you really think is going to be your future, you're not super passionate about, then it's a hobby. And by all means, save your money, don't get an operating agreement or get a cheap one online. But if this is something you are passionate about and this is something that you see your future in, why wouldn't you invest in protecting it? And any good business attorney is worth their weight in gold. So, thank you for coming. If you have any other questions, let me know. We're happy to answer. You can leave them in the comments. We do review everything and we want to make sure we're sharing the information that you want to see. If you want to speak to us directly, you absolutely can. Bryant Taylor Law, we're located in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, but we service all throughout the state. And you can reach us with the information below as well.